I gotta say the hardest thing I've ever said about Frank Miller, and this is someone who's actually inspired, influenced me a lot. His apogee of his talent as a creator was writing Batman Year One,
Okay.
and okay, everything he's done since then is to prove that that was an accident. Sin City was fun. 300 was fun, right? Hard Boiled was fun. Big Guy and Rusty Boy Robot was fun. A lot of the Sin City stuff he did was garbage. Dark Knight 2, garbage. I know there's people that like it. I don't know why. Maybe they have better drugs than I do. I have zero interest in what he did with Superman, and I mean, he wasted John Romita Jr.'s time, unless John got really good paychecks. I mean, if that was John Jr.'s
I'm
goal,
sure.
I
I'm
hope
sure
he
the
got
paycheck
that.
was good.
Because the idea of like Clark Kent working as a soldier so misconstrues the entire idea of Superman. I mean, there's a reason Superman is a journalist, a reporter. Reporters are witnesses. Soldiers follow orders. Just think about the creative decision between Siegel and Schuster seeing what a hero would have to be back in their time, understanding that reporters were incredibly important to make the democracy, because American democracy has always been corrupt, but it was really corrupt in the 30s, right?
Yeah.
So reporters were incredibly important. They were more important than soldiers, right? But then you get American machismo idea, which, stick alcoholic Frank Miller should never have embraced, because I mean, he's fragile. You could sneeze on him and break him. He's always worshipped the tough guy, probably because he never was, right? He feels the need to make Superman a soldier. And I think, I didn't read it. As soon as I heard it, I felt nauseous, right? But apparently he was like a SEAL Team 6 type soldier, like a special ops trained guy. And I'm like, to do that to Superman is to take a big steaming dump on the idea of someone coming to us as the child of a much better world, and he wants to elevate all of us because he loves us anyway. I mean, there's a reason, like there's all these religious analogies to Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, Moses was what Siegel and Schuster were reaching to, and a lot of other people reached to Christ. And the idea of like, so Frank Miller it's like he should have been slapped for that. I don't think he recovered yet. I don't think they ran the intervention on him then when he came up with that bullshit. But that was they should just burn all the fucking copies of that. It's utter garbage. The idea of a guy who's so powerful he refuses to kill anyone because everyone around him are essentially children, right? I mean, it's like going into a daycare and some kid, shoots a Nerf gun at you, and you walk over and you snap his neck, right? Don't ever do that again. I'm Superman. It's like, Jesus. No, I mean, it's the key to the character is in the roles he chooses to fill.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people go around. I don't know if this is not true, but they go, Superman is the secret identity of Clark Kent because Clark Kent is who he was raised to be, right? And Superman is the extension of that. Whereas Batman pretends to be Bruce Wayne because he can't be anything else. And I get along with that. I can roll with that interpretation. Like there's people who write, I love Batman animated series because they write this wonderfully strong, heroic Batman. As I think the mainline Batman book should be that.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
I don't think he should be like, fighting the Joker with his face ripped off. To go back about 6-7 years, right? Like staple face Joker. I mean, it's like writing Batman as a horror comic's fine for Black Label, or if they were like doing a Vertigo Batman book at one point, I think they were going to do that. Then Black Label took over. I think that's fine if you can separate your adult storylines from your general population storylines.
Yeah.
I mean, like Batman Damned, like pulling his dick out. What the fuck, man? It's like, how are you gonna sell underoos? How are you gonna sell Batman underoos? When there was a, hey, did you see Batman's dick? Right? I mean, it's like certain things, it's like I get why creatives want to, some creatives have that kind of like, oh, shock for its own sake is so attractive. But my God, it's like I made some I drew a bat dick. I put it up online. And then actually I drew a bat dick and then I said, you know what, I'm just gonna put them on a pair of briefs with the bat logo on the front of it. Because that's safer.
You draw a lot of stuff that could be considered controversial.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, the Batman Catwoman thing. That was fun. And also that was bullshit on the Harley. From what I understand, talking to people at DC, the writer who said DC wouldn't let them do that, Batman doesn't do that, that never happened. It was the writer who, yeah, he was juicing up his interview. Yeah, basically they said, we want to do this joke, and DC said, yeah, you know, it's Batman, we don't want to do that shit with Batman, which is perfectly, again, they learned their lesson from Bat Day, right? Maybe we just should not do that shit with Batman because of, like, you know, there's 3-year-olds who wear Batman shit, right? I don't see 3-year-olds running around with Ron Jeremy outfits on. Okay, it's fucking Batman. You let Batman be Batman and appeal to all ages. You can do an adult horror book, but don't whip out his dick.
For people who don't get that reference, do not Google it at work. Okay.
Which reference? I did a bunch there.
Ron Jeremy.
Oh, Ron Jeremy, the hedgehog. Well, actually, yeah, also, it's like he turns out he's a criminal too.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah, he's a serial sexual harasser and rapist.
Wow.
I don't know if he's convicted, so it might be alleged. I think alleged is probably a better term. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's porn. There's a lot of shitty. Every industry that's kind of fringe,
yeah,
and the money's dodgy, you know, like comics, it's full of shitty people. It really is. I mean, when there's real money at stake, it's harder to get in if you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, people behave.
If you end up at the top and you become a piece of shit because you're abusing power, like say Harvey Weinstein, well then it's harder to get rid of you because people are invested in you. I mean, just look at the way Warren Ellis tried coming back. I mean, I was very disappointed to hear that
Image.
there were fans out there who didn't care.
There are fans out there who don't care.
Yeah, and it's not. There's also fans out there who don't know, but it's like they said, well, that was like a year ago. How? And then they'll stand in their soapbox and, well, how long should someone be punished for, like, you know, just 30 years of abusing and harassing women? I say 6 months, right? What the fuck, right? And he didn't do the work. He comes back, kind of announcing. He basically gets Ben Templesmith to announce they're coming back. And I understand. I mean, it's like Ben's very loyal, so I understand why he'd be willing to finish this project with Warren. I wouldn't.
Understand.
I mean, as soon as Dale Keene went comics hit, I threw everything I had of Pitt away. And I did a big chunk of work there. I'm pretty proud of a lot of the stuff I did there. But I mean, people show you who they are, right? Warren gets outed for his, you know, decades of being a piece of shit. He comes back a year later and he hopes everyone forgot.
Yeah.
We're talking about an audience where people remember what happened in Superman 50 years ago.
I know.
Do you remember when he had that giant key to unlock the Fortress of Solitude, man? That was so cool. Oh, Warren Ellis has been gone for a year. Oh yeah, what did he do? I don't remember. I just let him write Warren Ellis comic.
Crazy thing would be if Gerard Jones ever comes back.
Yeah, well, I don't think there is any coming back from that.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any coming back from that. I mean, let him find a job when he serves his time and go on being. There's and it's much less true in comics than any other media, but there's a certain obligation when you become any sort of like celebrity, when you have any sort of infamy.
Mm-hmm.
And I maybe I'm overreaching because I taught for a long time. When you teach, you have a responsibility to the relationships you develop with your student, right? And I taught at colleges where teachers slept with their students, and that was against the rules.
That is against the rules, yeah, in any college.
Yeah. And but no one wanted to know, if you know what I mean. Right? They knew, but they didn't want to know. Right.
Yeah.
And there was one professor who, and this is after I stopped, one of the students came to me and told me she was like sexually harassing her, and then suddenly she didn't go along, and suddenly all her marks just disappeared. Like they just dropped, bottomed out. Right. And it's like, I said, I didn't see any of it, so I can't be a witness to that, but I can be a witness to your character that you wouldn't lie about this. Right. And the college didn't do anything about it. College didn't fucking do anything about it. And the teacher's still there. It's like, because he's in the union, they don't want to have the fight. And it's like, I'm back in my head, I'm thinking, would the union fight for him? Would the union fight for him? Right. But then I also think it's like, okay, so I draw comic books. That's fine. But I have an audience who reads like my work. Okay. So that gives me a voice. And I think you have to use that responsibly. I mean, you say something stupid, you better fucking own up to it. I mean, was it a couple of years ago? This is embarrassing because I'm going to tell a humiliating story about myself. So I like a lot of people, I was listening to Joe Rogan before he turned into like
before he turned into who he is.
Yeah. I mean, he was talking to a lot of MMA guys, and he was interviewing like weird oddball scientists, and it was just all over, and stand-up comedians who are always interesting to listen to, even though some of them are like just fucked up people. So it was really interesting to listen to. And so I got loaded with his bias on trans MMA fighters.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, that was my first experience. I have trans friends. I have a very, very offline trans friend who's a weightlifter. Like, so she's fucking strong, right? But she's a weightlifter, right? It doesn't matter that, she used to be testosterone driven and otherwise male. That doesn't fucking matter. But it's like, and she still does, as far as I know, very similar opinions to Joe Rogan. So I got Joe Rogan in one ear saying one thing, and then I have a trans friend who's saying essentially the same thing. So I blunder into this on Twitter. And I say, well, the science says this and this and this. And I make a complete and utter ass out of myself. But thankfully, there were people there who actually understood that, I was just operating from ignorance. And they sent me some like real good articles to read. And so I'm reading them. And then it's like, and people are like really angry at me, and they're saying like the most horrible things you can imagine, and I deserve them at this point. And then I'm reading his response, and I go, oh God, look at that asshole. He's only making anything worse. And then I went, oh shit, I wrote that. Right. I was okay. So I was really sick, and I probably drank way too much. I made like this whiskey hot toddy. So I was kind of drunk, and I already had some cough syrup earlier too. So I was kind of loopy. And so I was like,
you're not supposed to mix
anyway.
those.
Yeah. It was. I was pretty fucking. It was clearly like a really nasty cold, and I thought I was fine because I'm drunk texting, but I didn't think I was drunk texting. And then but on top of that, I read what I wrote, and I realized, at the end of the day, I got all these people responding to me because I have this voice in this audience that gives whatever I say a little bit of weight. It doesn't necessarily have real weight, but has a little bit of weight. And I'm saying something that I'm now incredibly embarrassed to have said. I have to do better.
Yeah.
Right. And there's never going to be a story about me, sexually manipulating someone or sexually harassing someone, because you just don't go there. I mean, don't the do no harm thing from doctors is just a good thing to have in life. I mean, and you see like, has-beens running off the comics gate saying the most terrible things. And they're doing it because they know saying something terrible is going to make them a hero to people who feel terrible things. I never want to do that. I'd much rather walk away from comics than have to be a piece of shit professionally. And I mean, that's the one takeaway is like you grow up reading Superman and Green Lantern and Captain America. It's like they may have grown up in a different time, but they were never assholes.
They were always good to people.
They were well written. They were never assholes. I don't know about Wolverine, Captain America. He might have been a bit of an asshole. Sorry, I said werewolf or Wolverine?
You said Wolverine.
I'm sorry. I mean werewolf Captain America.
Oh, no, werewolf Captain America was a werewolf.
He was a good guy. Yeah. Well, I understand. If he became more like a dog, yeah, of course, Captain America you'd be like a golden retriever. I'm Captain America the dog. I'll fetch my shield now.
Yeah, I actually read Cap Wolf. It was a thing.
Yeah, I never did. It's like, I think okay, just to go back to saying something nice about Frank Miller because I really shit on him earlier. Captain America's his use of Captain America in Born Again was perfect, right? It really was. He used enough of the old soldier and the fact that Captain America, I mean, I don't know why the right wingers are always surprised when Captain America does something like progressive.
Captain America is a liberal.
He is, right? I mean, think about who created him, for crying out loud. And like he was fighting Nazis when people in America were like pro-Nazi. So many people forget how pro-Nazi most America was. Not most, but half. Essentially, all the people who would support Trump would be the guys supporting the Nazis.
Right. Because every time, right? Every time Captain America's been a liberal, and every time something happens, it's like, oh, Captain America would never do this. Tell me you don't read Captain America comics without telling me
you never read a Captain America comic.
Yeah. So let's talk about Frank some more. Ronin. Oh my God. Yeah. Ronin is. See, I saw Ronin before I ever saw Lone Wolf and Cub. I can understand that then.
Yeah. On top of that, I was aware of Mobius, but there weren't the reprints yet. Like I'd seen some heavy metal that had Mobius in it, right? And so what happened in Ronin visually, I was totally unprepared for it. I mean, just the cityscapes were just like, what? I hadn't seen any manga at that point either.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think Frank Miller, the artist, is better than Frank Miller, the writer.
Absolutely. Frank Miller, the storyteller.
Yes.
I'll go there. Okay, because his plots are generally really strong. I mean, knows how to construct a story really well. He gets elevated by who he's working with. When he's drawing his own story, he's kind of stuck. He can only do the best possible Frank Miller story. When he works with Mazzucchelli, I mean, he gets one of the eminent storytellers of our time.
One of the greatest, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and the thing of it is, and it goes into the whole writer-artist debate. The most important player in any comic book is always going to be the artist.
I agree.
And I don't understand why people think it's debatable.
It's because Alan Moore exists.
Yeah, and he wrote those phone book scripts, but it's like if I'm trying to think, if Rob Liefeld drew Watchmen, no one would give a fuck.
Yeah, I don't know how to comment on that one. I'll tell you what. You ever see one of the things Dave Gibbons drew a page of Swamp Thing, and just kind of proved that it was from an Alan Moore script, and just kind of proved that it wouldn't have worked because Dave is
It is. It
way
really
too
is.
clean.
Yeah, way too clean. Yeah, so Mazzucchelli worked on two of the best written Frank Miller stories. And I think they're the best written Frank Miller stories because the acting and the mise en scene and everything that David brought to those projects elevated them. If you read interviews about Electra Assassin, when Frank and Bill were working together, and also Daredevil,
Love and War.
Love and War. I just bought the oversized edition. It looks like it's just shot from the pages and then made bigger. But I'm so happy to have it. But yeah, Frank would send Bill the script, and then Bill would kind of go, "Huh, I'm going to do this." I mean, apparently that lion riding in the Jeep with Electra was entirely Bill. Like that wasn't in the script. And like the decision to do flashbacks and cut paper, and the way Bill was doing these beautiful landscapes to open every issue.
Yeah.
Right. Apparently, so much of Electra Assassin was being rewritten as it was being painted that it's like, if I understand correctly, Frank wrote the first 2 or 3 scripts in advance, or like while Bill was working, and then he saw first issue art, and he went back and he rewrote 2 and 3, and then he kept rewriting as Bill turned in more stuff.
Bill told me that they would take the pages and kind of just jumble them around and then have Frank do them.
Yeah, yeah, and that sounds perfectly at a whole with what that works. And similarly, like what I'm going to be writing and drawing my own story, I'm limited by who I am. I'm going to do the best I can, but I'm going to hit that wall of I can only see a certain way, I can only tell a story a certain way, with confidence that it'll work. I wrote a short story in Christopher Mitten. I don't know if you know his work. He's brilliant. He's done a lot of work for Mignola's Hellboy verse.
Okay.
And he turned in this wonderful approach to the job. It just is just open and it tells the story perfectly. And I'm so happy with him. So it's going to be Kickstarted at some point because we're doing like a collection of like homages to Weird Tales.
Okay.
So I got 2 stories in there. One that Chris drew, which is going to be so much better than the one I'm drawing. I wrote that one too, though. So, but I'll do a lot of Photoshop razzle dazzle and special effects in it, so people will ignore my stupidity. So I have empathy when Frank is stuck on his own doing a comic book. But any of the work he's done completely solo worked best because of what he did visually. And I think that's right there in Ronin, because there are scenes that stand out in Ronin as just bad. I mean, they had no business being in there the way they were done. There's a scene where the racists, like the Nazi gang and the black gang, who's incredibly racist, for some reason they put one of each of their members in a pit tied to a stake so these underground mutants can come and eat them, and they're gambling over who will be scared first. And in my mind, I kind of think, well, he just wants to establish that this post-apocalyptic culture has these gangs controlling shit. Maybe he saw the Warriors too often. And he also wants to establish how dangerous the underground mutants are, because Ronin's going to fight those fuckers. But it is such a clumsy, deeply racist scene. Right?
Yeah.
And I would, and it's like, we're talking early mid 80s, so I can understand where some, like, white male editor at DC Comics goes, yeah, sure, okay, that's fine. Right? I don't see the problem with that, because we're surrounded, because they're living and swimming in 1980s racist culture. But as more time goes by, I kind of wish they'd just cut those fucking pages out, because they don't serve the story one bit.
There's no
Yeah,
reason.
and yeah, and it's like, I don't know that if that scene could have gone, you have to wonder, would Frank have fought for it? If the editor came in like, you know what, that scene's not working. Can we rewrite it so it's not, deeply fucking problematically racist? But then you also realize he has similar problems in Dark Knight. There's a deep seam of weird racism in Dark Knight. And I mean, it's like he grew up like a Midwest farm kid or something,
Yeah.
right? So I'm sure he was absolutely terrified of black people in New York City when he was living there. Because again, he was a scrawny little guy who had pretensions of being a tough guy. And we have to look at that. So I know there's going to be shortcomings. There's going to be things that's like, say I live to be like 90, and I look back at the book I'm doing and I go, oh shit, I really wish I did that instead. Right. And
It's gonna happen.
Or I didn't. Yeah, it's going to happen. We're going to change this as a culture, and hopefully I'll become a better person, a better creator down the road. So I'm going to look back at what I did and go, shit, I should have done better. Right. Yeah, so that's, but apart from that, the visual sense of what he was doing, the expendability of characters, which was pretty new to me in comics at that point. Like, he'd set up a character, you have a character, you have an arc. Oh, their arc's done. Why? Because they're dead, right? It's not a great story. Even Dark Knight's a better written project than Ronin, but Ronin had ambitions, and everything from that amazing, visually exotic flashback to ancient Japan, which didn't really happen, of course. It feels like it's really happening. No, it's a TV show, right? It's a TV show in the comic book. But I still talk to people who think that's the past. They don't. And I think that's part of the ambition of the book. There's people who will read all of Ronin, and for some reason they think it's Samurai Jack, right? Where it's like, oh yeah. So the Ronin travels through time, and he inhabited, multiple amputee mutant. And it's like, no, the mutant just got confused by a TV show. he got manipulated by the artificial intelligence to be, and it's like, and the artificial intelligence motivations didn't really make sense. It was just evil AI. So it was bad science fiction on that level. But what he did visually in there, everything from like how he drew the TV show, how he drew contemporary New York, to how he chose to tell a story, the bravura decision to do the double gatefold for an explosion, and then the fade to black. There are a lot of things in Ronin that make it a must read, despite its problematic elements.
What about this one? Surprised me, because with your other choices, I can absolutely see, how they impact your style and everything. But Love and Rockets,